So, how do you turn photos into sound? Can you create another level of listening and interacting with photography? I started off with a bunch of photos that kind of look at how you can physically make photos loud through kind of what you're capturing, what you're taking photos of. However, for this, I wanted to look at how you could do it manually, physically, how you could directly take the data of an image and translate that digital data into MIDI data or kind of audio data, anything you could turn into sound that you could then play through a sampler, through a song, through anything like that. One of the first and maybe not easiest ways, but it's the first way I was looking into was directly changing that data. So you pick an image. For this, I used this one of Evie, just here. And you take the bottom dimension of the image, the width. And what you want to do is take a sample rate, 44.1 kilohertz, and you want to divide that by the frequency of the pitch you want to put the image into, whatever you want that image to sound like. And it will sound like that. It will sound very harsh, very abrupt, but that's a direct translation of the data of the image. So it's been taken from raw data, put into Audacity, and then through Audacity you can change the file data to WAV. Now that is a direct WAV file data change of this image. So when I play it, you can then put it into anything. So you can put it into, here I put it into Logic, and what I'm going to do is I just made it into an arpeggiated synth sample track, and I just changed the parameters a little bit. And now that kind of really harsh, distorted noise you heard before will sound like this. Something a lot more playable, something a lot more fun. And something that you can use in music. So that is the first way you can directly translate the data. The second way is by using an app called Vosis. Now Vosis takes a small section of the image and it scans it, or it plays just a small portion of that image. So instead of having like the really harsh noise that you heard on the first one from all of the data, it takes it down and it only scans a certain amount of pixels. So the first example of that I've got is this one here. What we've got going on here is as it's scanning, it's going to pick up the white. It's going to pick up all of this going on here, and as you're scanning this shape of the ear, it's going to become more present because I'm changing the filter pass, so it's going from high pass to low pass. It's going to become clearer, and you're going to get a really, really rounded image sound because it's kind of blurry, but as you're opening that up, you're changing it. So it's great because even as an image, you can directly see the correlation between music and imagery because you're changing the low pass filter to high pass or whatever, and it is literally changing the shape, the size of the image, how pixelated it is. And that's one of the key correlations I was first looking at because distortion in both photography and music is classed as noise. There's so much terminology that's very, very similar across the two subjects. So another example of the Vosis app is this one where you can scan and play it a little bit easier. So you have more control over the image and how the image is played or fluctuating. So here I've set the different, this is my hands moving and it's my fingers touching the screen, and as they're touching the screen it is scanning that small square of the image. Now I've set it to kind of a different harmonies on each finger, so when you're playing you've got a different harmonic going through and you can hear as they move the different levels into kind of louder and quieter bits. So, and then I've got a couple last examples of that. This one I'm actually changing how blurry the image is by making the threshold different. So the more sharp you make that image, the more harsh it is going to sound, very similar to the distortion effect. Another example of that is here, and this one I'm actually changing the downsample, so I'm making the image more pixelated. And as it becomes more pixelated, you've got more solid notes. So you can actually create more beat type things with that. So here I did a little bit of an experiment, and you can really make that beat, that kind of synthesizer noise that you could then play pretty easily. The pixelated stuff makes a lot of a more direct noise correlation. The third example I was looking at was Photosounder. Now, Photosounder is a pretty good visual example of how you can translate this data. Along here, you have the frequency, the hertz, the pitch. And so as you've got these swooping motions, this white is all going to be played and picked up as it goes along this bottom axis, which is the time. You can hear the more complex bit here is where you've got more lines coming through, but this one's pretty standard. Now you can invert the images, and the more white that's included, the more it's going to be kind of noisy and harsh and harder to listen to. So you can kind of hear it's got a lot more complexity to the sound, but again, it just depends on what sound you're trying to make. You have quite a lot of control over these images. There's another example here, where I'm just literally playing through this image of a person smiling, and as you hit the white, you're going to hit the changes in frequency. And yeah, it's really interesting because you can actually edit these parameters yourself. You've got tone intensity, minimum frequency, maximum frequency, volume, and then kind of the pixelation, also the gamma, which is going to change how your image looks. You can invert it or whatever. Now, you can take these images from Photosounder, export the audio, and you can put it into Logic, and it will, or any software like Logic, and it will create a translation of that image. So you can actually hide images in music, be able to see images within what you're playing. So as this line's going across, that's that same images, and I can hide in it. I can use it as a tool to hide images within sound. Now, spectrograms are taking the data and they're making a translation of them into imagery. I can actually hide lots of images in this data. Yeah, that's the 3 different ways that you can use photography to make it into sound and then translate it back, which is the really interesting bit. So I will play what I've made, and yeah, I'll talk through it as I'm doing it, and you can kind of see what it is that I've done. So this first one going on here at the top is an audio of horn. That's where I'm taking vocis and I'm using the higher pitch frequencies and I'm dragging them around. This second one down is the lower beat. That's me changing the threshold of the low pass filter, high pass filter on the images, and it makes that kind of really low rumbling rising noise. And then you've just got me singing over the top. And here's the first example of a spectrogram. this is this spectrogram playing left to right, and you can actually see the image encoded in the data.
Ever wanted. That's it. All I ever wanted.
Weather's clearing in the air. Yeah, and that is an example of how you can expand your photographic practice to include sound, music, and images, and make it a cross-sensory experience. So, yeah, cut.